Eliminate unnecessary wait time. You're 50% to a no just because you're not running on time. Hand to hand. Here's the thing, when it comes to the hands, there's almost never a lymphatic backup in the upper extremities. It's just, they're too close to the heart. Here's the deal, things flow downhill, right? So with our feet, unless you're weird, there's very few times that you're going through life with your feet above your head. Our hands are always moving, so there's kind of a built-in pump. So with the neurolymphatic activation protocol, you don't have to worry about lymphatics in the upper extremity. So if it's just an upper extremity problem, it's just hand to hand. Unless somebody's got a surgical issue where they've had surgery and they've gotten the lymph nodes removed, or they've got like severe thoracic outlet, you just don't have to worry about that in the upper extremity. So upper extremities, don't get caught up in lymphatics, just go hand to hand. And I normally recommend the gloves because most of the time it's the fingertips and they just get a little better outcome. All right, let's jump into the operations constraint. All right. Is everybody finding today helpful so far? Awesome. Somebody yell out really quick, what's been the most impactful moment from today for you? Somebody just yelled your shoes. That's awesome. They should get a free ticket to EMX for that. And again, it was interesting. I was talking to Toby earlier about this. And when we say that a lot of times marketing is going to be your first constraint, we're not actually suggesting that you need every single marketing playbook. You just need to know your numbers. You can't move on to, you can't fix stuff that you don't know. So if you don't have any idea what's happening with your numbers, you just can't move forward. So when we say it normally starts with marketing, a lot of that is just awareness of what's actually happening. It's not saying you need to go through months of marketing. You just need to know what the heck's going on in your office, right? And that's important. I remember one time I told Kelly, I'm like, man, this TV station's killing us. We're killing it on this station. She's like, yeah, we're cutting that. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's like one of our biggest form of leads. And we literally, I'll never forget this, in 1 month, we got 80 leads from that TV station. We had probably most of them show up. All of them wanted to do care, and we didn't get one person financed. And out of 80 people, not one got financed. So I don't know what was going on with the people that watched that station, but we were losing money. And because I kept seeing that station come up over and over on the lead things, I'm like, I'm killing it with this station. I would have wasted another $4,000 without her saying we lost money on that last month. So you got to know your marketing numbers. All right, so from diagnosis to implementation. How do we get these playbooks installed? Which one do we need? Kind of what's the path to do this, right? One theme you're going to see with most of these different playbooks or constraints is you almost always have to start with the first one, and then your coach will help you decide 2 through 5 which one you need. You don't normally need to go through all 5 in order, but you almost always need to start with the first one because that's the numbers one. If you've noticed a theme, playbook 1 almost always tell you your numbers. But you have to know your capacity for day 1. What's your day 2 capacity? I was actually on a coaching call and they're like, our close rate's awful. How can you help us get our close rate up? And I looked at all of their numbers, not just their close rate. And the deal was how many people have dedicated day 1 times for new patients? Right. They did not have dedicated day 2 times. So what was happening is a patient would come in and they were waiting 2-3 weeks before they had time in the schedule to do a day 2, and nobody was signing up. It was 3 weeks later, right? And so while they knew their adjusting capacity and they knew their day 1 capacity, they didn't really know what their capacity was to do a day 2 and where that could fit. So they were losing so much money because they just hadn't thought through what's the capacity of all the aspects of my office. So we're going to look a little bit more today on what's my hour capacity, what's my adjusting capacity, but keep in mind, if you have 2 doctors, what are their capacities? What's your staff capacity? So there's more numbers than this, and all those are in your playbook. This is just kind of a starting point. All right, op 2 is patient flow. Number 3 is going to be, do I have systems in place? Do I have standard operating procedures? 4, what's my key man risk? I know a lot of you guys, this is the one that's going to hit home for you. And then 5 is, are my KPIs? First of all, it says KPI visibility. Maybe even a step back, do I have KPIs? And if I do, are they visible? So let's jump into capacity. This basically is the first thing you have to know. A lot of people don't know their capacity, and we get questions all the time. I don't know if all the coaches are still in here, but I'd have them raise your hand on this. But in fact, how many times have you guys as coaches had the conversation, do you think I should hire an associate? Do you think I need a new front desk person? Do you think I'm ready for a case manager? And our question is, what percentage of capacity are you at? They're like, huh? They have no idea. You can't make any of those decisions about staffing, about do I need to expand? Do I need more square footage? You can't do any of that without knowing your capacity. And especially when it comes to, great example, I had another one doc I was talking to, they're doing decompression. They're like, I'm not sure, we think we might be ready for another table. And I said, well, what's your capacity on the first table? Well, we're getting busy. I'm like, man, I'm looking at the number line and I can't find I'm getting busy anywhere between 1 and 100. So that doesn't help me. They had no idea what their capacity was on the first table. And when we really did the math, they'd outgrown that, and they couldn't market. They had all these leads coming in and nowhere to put them because they didn't know their capacity ahead of time, and they learned their capacity when they exceeded it. How many of you guys are in that boat sometimes? Once the ship starts to sink because there's too many people on it, you start bailing, right? You need to know ahead of time what your capacity is. You can't make scaling decisions if you don't know when you're going to run out of space or resources. All right, so here's a formula we're going to work with. And in fact, we'll do this right now. I want you to figure out what your hourly capacity is. Now, I kept this formula simple. This is really just giving you how many hours do I have available. So if you look at how many rooms you have, your closet, your bathroom in the front doesn't count, actual adjusting rooms. How many hours a day? And these are productive hours, not how many hours are we open, how many hours are we adjusting patients? So the question is, we have an exam room, we have a day 1, day 2 room, independent of our adjusting room. So this gives us our adjusting capacity, but there are other numbers that matter. You're absolutely right. I just don't have time to go into those. But that's what we do on the coaching. Like if you're with a coach and we're like, okay, we need to start with capacity, we're going to look at, like, is it you and an associate? If we have 2 doctors, that's going to change so we're going to look at all those numbers. But yeah, you have to know all that. You do an awesome day 1. You've got a connection. You know their why. You're crying. You're swaying back and forth, singing Kumbaya. Like you've got your moment, right? And then you go in and you're like, okay, this is Bob. And then the doctor's like, all right, Bob, have a seat, man. Let's take a look at your feet. They're perky, they're upbeat, and they lose all that emotional connection. And here's the thing, to Bob, this is the first exam he's had. Your associate doc, this might be 891 of the week, right? And so he's going through the motions, or she's going through the motions. And so there needs to be a handoff that keeps the intensity you've developed on the quality of life rolling into the exam. We slowed down, we went into the why, and then Kelly would always say, Bob, is there anything that I didn't understand? People want to be understood, right? The 2 things they want, they love their name, they want to be understood. I heard Kelly doing a coaching call on Monday, and I'm like, wow, that's a good point. I should be saying that. Because she said, you know what bothers me about your recording? I didn't know till the very end what their name was. She's like, why didn't you use it throughout the entire process? How can I listen to a 20-minute recording and not who you're talking to? And so people's their favorite word in the English language is their name, right? In our office, if someone starts talking to me about the Chiefs during their exam, I'll answer one question. If they come back about the Chiefs, I'm going to say, hey, you know, Bob, man, I'm the biggest fan out there, but I only have a few minutes and I can't be distracted. So I'm not trying to be rude. I need to focus on your low back and I need to make sure I don't miss anything. Once you start care, we can Monday morning quarterback all day long. Right now, I need to focus on your back. Do you think that gets their attention? Do you think that offends them? No, they appreciate that because Dr. Kingsbury cares about me, and he cares about me enough to stop me from interrupting him so he can really focus on my low back. And so that handoff is important from the case manager to the doctor. So each step of the way, when you hand the patient off, there has to be a scripted handoff. You can do a great job in each individual room, but if there's not a congruency through the process, you're going to lose the intensity and the emotion, and that's going to basically manifest as I have to think about it, I can't afford it, I need to ask my wife. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, so really script those in and understand what your transitions are. Eliminate unnecessary wait time. If you do bank code, there's a couple bank codes that do not like to wait. Your A's and B's, man, they do not like to wait. So have something built in. We never made people wait in our office. I had an extra video room exactly for that reason. And when it was 1 minute before their exam time, if anybody was behind, we threw them in a room and turned a video on. Like, nobody ever waited in our office because 2 of those bank codes, you're 50% to a no just because you're not running on time. So have things in place to mitigate that. And then again, this process has to happen every time, every patient, regardless of who's on duty and regardless of what niche it is. In our office, and I'll give Kelly credit for this, it didn't matter who was working and what niche it was. This process happened every single day the exact same way. And do you want to know why it happened the same way? Who wants to tell me? Because we trained on it all the time. We were super busy. And even we were working 4 days a week, we were collecting a couple $100,000, and we still trained for 2.5 hours a week. And so when I hear doctors that are collecting $40,000 and they're too busy to have team training, I don't know, man. We did it. We had 5 staff members seeing $200,000 and trained a couple hours a week. So if we can do it, I feel like it's possible. In fact, where's Dr. Verge? Oh, okay, because I know that guy. I know, Lindsay, how often do you guys train at your offices? Yeah, a couple hours a week. I tell you, nobody that was on our top doc award is not training in their office. Josiah Fitzsimmons, $6 million a year practice, trains 2 to 3 hours every single week. So you got to train on this stuff. Having it written down somewhere is not going to fix your ops problem. And then document it. You just have to have documentation of what these processes are. I said this yesterday, if the document's not used, it's not an SOP, it's a file. You have to train on these things. These documents, you have to document your processes, right? Once you document them, train on them. I will say, when you guys go back Monday, do not try to document your whole office. What you'll have is 25 really bad documents that are useless. You're better off having 3 documents that are absolutely awesome than 25 that suck. So pick the 3 or 4 areas that are the worst and just start the documentation. You should be able to have your front desk out sick, have a stranger sit down at that desk, and have enough of a playbook and operating manual where they can struggle through the day without tanking your office. And within a couple weeks, they should be able to own that position because everything they do is documented in detail, and all they have to do is go A through Z. $500 is motivational. We got some awesome documentation pretty quickly because they knew when I got the final product, they got $500. So bonus it if you have to. Don't do it yourself. Get it done. All right. That's where you're going to get consistency through your processes. So when you're looking at operations, you want to look at your office and look at if there's a problem in the patient experience, if this is done wrong, this is the one you have to fix. Some of your processes, if they fell apart, not a big deal, right? You want to look at the process and say, when this breaks down, there's a very recognizable consequence in our office, and that's the one you want to start fixing. You want to look at it and say, when this breaks down, how much does it cost me? Perfect example. The clinic I talked about earlier that didn't have day 2 times built in, how much was that costing them? And it wasn't just costing them, the cost was astronomical because look, number one, it cost them marketing money that had no ROI. So over here, I'm throwing $10,000 away in marketing. All right, now we have to train and clarify, right? And certify our staff on these things. So once we get these SOPs in place, once we get these maps, once we get this patient experience down, you have to train on it. Anytime you want to learn something, whatever book or tape series, back then it was a cassette, might have been an 8-track before that. And I think I had a couple chiseled in stone, but do it 6 times. So to this day, whenever I read a book that I like, I read it 6 times before I move on. And it's crazy how the author adds all this stuff in on the 6th thing that he forgot to write in the first 5 times through. So same with your staff. Unless they train on it, it just doesn't matter. All you just have is more files. Build a training process. Don't leave it up to yourself to train on something randomly. Have it built in. What we did in our office, if I had a task for the staff to train on something, I would assign that task, I would assign the training, and I'd say, okay, I want you to spend, the next week training on this. Is it realistic for you to have this done by 5 o'clock on Friday? Yep, sure, Doc. Guess what I'm putting in my calendar and their calendar at 5 o'clock on Friday? A sit-down meeting for them to tell me what they learned. If you give them a deadline, you have to hold them accountable and handhold them. And if you forget to check in, you've just lost all credibility for the next deadline. Anytime you give someone a deadline to finish a big task, especially if they have to learn a bunch of stuff, and say, okay, this has got to be done by Friday at 5. We're going to have a 15-minute meeting at 5 o'clock on Friday for you to debrief me on what you learned and to tell me about the process. Stuff will get done if they have them sit down with you at the end of the deadline. And here's the ninja tip on this one, guys. Here's the top-level ninja tip. Write down the 5 things you're going to work on, right? Set a goal right now. How many of these per week or per month am I going to produce? Because what's going to happen, we're going to write down 5 now, and we're going to say, when I get these 5 done, I'm going to do 5 more. A goal without specificity is just an idea. It's not an actual goal. So maybe when you write down the 5 things you're going to do, then write down, we're going to produce 3 SOPs per week. And then write down, and here's who's going to do it. If you identify how many, who's responsible, and what their deadline is, that's when stuff starts getting done.
If you feel stuck in your practice, working harder but not further, hit subscribe. We break down how to fix that one constraint at a time in every video.